Hello and welcome to the Background Noise Podcast, where if you're listening, we appreciate it, and if you're not, hey, you're not missing that much. Today, in our second episode of the web swinging hero that everyone loves, we are talking about the Amazing Spider-Man Marc Webb duology with my co-hosts, of course, Jack
Hi.
and Joseph.
Oh, this is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them.
All right. That is the wrong franchise, although I do appreciate the reference. Maybe eventually we'll have to talk about those.
You know that's the only thing I bring to the table.
That is, that's fair. We have all been described as walking memes, which I do appreciate and am happy to embody. I'm happy to embody the phrase of living walking meme.
I will accept that.
Unfortunately, the movies that we're talking about today are not as memeable. There aren't quite as many Amazing Spider-Man memes as there are original Spider-Man memes, or Sam Raimi trilogy. I don't know how we want to refer to them. We'll call them the trilogy and the duology, or the trilogy and the Amazing.
I'm all for what is it? Let's just say the Amazing. I was gonna say the web, the whimsical web, and then I couldn't find another W, so let's just shelf that one for now, and then we'll come up with something later.
The whimsical web watch. Whimsical
watches. Let's stop now. Let's stop now. Go ahead, Joe.
Let's
go.
We'll let it simmer. So I wanted to start off because last time we talked about how we were introduced to the trilogy, and I'm pretty sure that for all of us, we were at least aware of the Sam Raimi trilogy before we ever saw the Amazing Spider-Man duology.
Right.
So I wanted to talk about how, for each of us, how we were exposed to these movies, how we arrived at these movies. Because I think based on things I've talked to you guys about off podcast, I think that explains the difference of opinion that we have about these movies. So I'll let Jack go first, Joe, and then I'll say where I came from.
Okay. I want to say, like I mentioned on the last episode, I didn't see 3 till years later. So I want to say I hadn't even seen 3 when I saw this one. What I genuinely cannot remember is whether or not I saw this in theaters or not. I do not know. I do know I ended up seeing it, and I remember liking it. I thought it was fine. I didn't hate or anything. I thought it was just a solid Spider-Man film. And then years later, I never saw either of these. Sorry. Like I said, I don't remember if I saw this one in theaters. The second one, I know I didn't see in theaters because I didn't have anybody who wanted to go or anybody who was interested. And so I ended up, I think my folks got it on Redbox and I watched it that way. And so, yeah, I watched both of those once and then, obviously rewatch them now. But for initial watches, my only previous experience with Spider-Man had been the Raimi trilogy. I read a few comics and maybe seen a few episodes of the 90s cartoon. So that was pretty much me going into it.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of me experiencing them, I suppose I like to think of it this way. Spider-Man 3 was the first movie I kind of experienced fully, in the sense that I experienced the marketing stuff, I bought the toys, stuff like that. I was aware enough to let's go see the movie. I'll go buy the toys or something. And then Amazing Spider-Man came out and I saw a trailer for it. It was either a YouTube trailer that was going around or something, or if it was just seeing it on TV and it's another Spider-Man movie. Okay. And then I never saw it in theaters.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I actually wound up catching it on one of the TV movie channels we had, and it's just it's different. I wasn't really. I can't even remember when this movie came out, so it was probably a year after it came out. I was still not really analyzing films, I guess. I'm not saying it's I wasn't ready to analyze the Amazing Spider-Man film. No, I just really didn't. I really didn't care about these ones until Pretty recently, I rewatched it. Recently, being about like maybe I watched both of them together, like when they were on the movie channels, like maybe a year after Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out, and watching them both together, it's like it's okay. Of
Hmm.
course, again, I feel like there was some rose tinted glasses kind of altering things a tad bit, but in terms of just exposure, I just for a while didn't even care about them.
Okay. So that's kind of what I was expecting. So I because I watched I was vaguely aware of the same Raimi movies, right? And I had watched them, I had seen them as like the TV movie things. I was aware of Spider-Man as a character, and I was in this saturation of just Spider-Man is a character, but not a crystallized idea of who he was. And so you said you didn't remember when these came out. The first Amazing Spider-Man movie came out in 2012. I don't know if you know, there was another important superhero movie that came out in 2012,
Iron
which is the
Man.
It would have been
no, the
Avengers.
Avengers. The first
Oh
Avengers movie
shoot.
came out. Yeah. So
Okay,
Iron
I
Man was
feel left.
2008. So so I was vaguely aware of Spider-Man as a character, that I liked, but didn't have any particular attachment to him. And then Avengers comes out, and I went from vaguely kind of interested in comic books to and the idea of superheroes to, oh yes, this is exactly what I want, yes please, more, all of that. And then shortly after that, I watched Amazing Spider-Man in theaters, and I definitely saw Amazing Spider-Man in theaters when it came out, like that release week, because that was when comic book movies had like became the thing that I loved. And so Amazing Spider-Man is my version of Spider-Man. That is the version of Spider-Man that I think of when I think of Spider-Man. And so I think the reason that I like this one, because spoiler alert, I like the Amazing Spider-Man movies more than most people do.
Get the
The
rocks.
the reason is because this is the one that's like I was vaguely aware of Spider-Man, and this for me is the definitive version of Spider-Man. And I think, and partially that's because of nostalgia. Although I rewatched it, and I don't know if it's because of nostalgia so much as the way I think about things either matches up with this movie or was formed by this movie. I don't know which one of the ways it is, which we'll talk about a little bit later when I'm thinking about there. But I do want to start off because I know I like Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man. I like the first one. The second one we'll talk about. We'll talk about the second one. But I do want to start off with what we like about the Amazing Spider-Man, if there are things that we like about it or not.
Okay, who's going first?
Well, it's not good as Venom Let There Be Carnage. So let me just put that out there.
Shots fired, man.
Yeah, that's fair. You know, I will accept that.
It's kind of just speaking as like going to an actual talking point. I suppose it's like I don't know. My big thing about the Raimi trilogy was the good villains, and you know we can ignore the third one again for that point. And I just feel like the second one, it's just a common criticism that the second one had too many again. It was trying to do too much with the villains again, and the ones that were there were just not good. Nothing on Jamie Foxx, but no one could have pulled that off. No one could have pulled off that Electro.
Yeah.
No. And I guess by process of elimination from Electro, and I'm using air quotes on the podcast again, the Green Goblin and the Lizard, I guess the Lizard was pretty good, but really to me, he was just a combination of kind of the worst parts of Norman Osborn and Doc Ock, because he's got the biggest thing is like he's got the weird, like he talks to the lizards, right? like I can't even remember it, but he's like, after he first transforms and he's like in his little sewer lab, he's like, monologuing to himself, kind of like Doc Ock does, which is, again, he's not Alfred Molina, so he can't pull it off. And he's just
That's
like,
fair.
there's a bunch of lizards around him, and he's like, yes, humanity is it. What is it? I felt like he was gonna go full Agent. Well, he kind of does go full Agent Smith. It's like, human beings are a disease, and it's just it's the worst the worst parts of two good villains, and I feel like that's an oversimplification, but that's one of the big things that's just
Interesting. All right. I said we wanted to start off with the good parts.
No, Lizard's fine. He's just
Okay.
not as good as the others, but he's good.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Well, Jack, do you have any praise for this movie, or am I going to have to carry the team on that?
I do have some praise. Something I will, unless the newer films in the future somehow do better, I will go down saying that my favorite romantic relationship in any of the Spider-Man films is between Peter and Gwen. I think that is very likable. They're both very charming. I think they're easily more likable as a relationship than Peter and Mary Jane or Peter and MJ in the new MCU films. So any scene they were in, I thought was very nice. I think Marc Webb, the director, he's very good with those sorts of scenes, with just people talking to each other. I think he's very good, because that seems from the films that I've seen of his and his work, he really seems to care about people. And so the scenes where it is people interacting, I think he is very good filming and directing those sorts of scenes. So I like those. I liked the web shooters. I liked how the web looks. I thought that was very well done. I mean, I thought the organic webbing was fine in this, but for their first take trying to do web shooters live action, I thought this worked, and I thought the web looked good. Looking at the first film, I thought the school fight scene was fun. If I had to choose a favorite fight scene, I think that was probably it. Something I didn't realize was that entire school, at least that entire hallway where they were fighting, was all CGI.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So they did a very good job with that, I must say.
It's a really good CGI, then. That's a really good CGI school.
Seriously.
For 2012, that holds up.
Right.
I felt like I was back in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that I thought that was very good. And I thought the cast were decent. I thought Uncle Ben and Aunt May were fine. I even thought that Dane DeHaan was fine as Harry Osborn. He wasn't a good... We'll get into what wasn't good, but I thought he was fine Harry Osborn. I'm trying to think what else like that. I think that's the main stuff that comes to mind when I think of things that I particularly enjoyed. I thought Andrew Garfield... I really liked the costume for Spider-Man in the second one. I thought that was very good. I think that was one of the... I still love the Raimi costume, but I thought for them trying to do a comic book accurate Spider-Man costume, I thought what they did in the second worked. And I'm trying to think, there was something else. Oh, yeah. Andrew Garfield, I think, is a very good actor, and I thought he did a good job in these films. Like I said, he and Emma Stone in particular, I thought were highlights.
Well, those two are definitely like... Those two work as the main character couple, right? If they spent more time as a couple. There's a criticism about the second movie, which is like they spend too much time on and off, but that's not a criticism about that movie specifically. That's the same criticism I had from last week about how nobody knows how to write two people in an actual relationship in a movie. And so that's just another version of that. But I do like... There's a criticism that I've heard people say, which is that Andrew Garfield is a great Spider-Man, but he's not a great Peter Parker. And I just rewatched these movies last night. That is not an accurate criticism at all, because he is 100% the awkward, nerdy Peter Parker. Like
he just happens to be a handsome skater boy also.
Right. So that's the thing. Like, the actor of Andrew Garfield is a very handsome actor, but if you listen to him talking, he does not sound like a suave, confident, cool guy. He is stuttering all the time. He has all these awkward pauses, and he has very both Peter and Gwen have very naturalistic dialogue. They have ums,
Yes,
and
I
I don't
agree.
know if it's written in or if they were.
That is a good one.
Yeah, I don't know if it was written into the script or if they were given like a direction to do that. But they have very much well, it's or we could do the thing, or we could do that. Yeah, there's the scene where that's exactly how the scene where Peter asks out Gwen goes, where he's
Right.
saying we could do this or that, but he's not actually saying anything. He's just stuttering and being awkward because he's a nerdy loser, right? Who doesn't know how to deal with the situation. So
There did seem to be a lot. Oh, sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, he is definitely fulfills that like nerdy Peter Parker vibe.
Yeah, there did seem a lot of. It seemed like probably in the script for the first one, it was very much okay. We've got point A, point B. You 2 are kind of well aware of what your character's supposed to be. Go at it, and
Yep.
yeah, that worked out pretty well. When we get to the con again, I feel like I'm going to be the negative Nancy for this episode. But when we get to the cons, I want to bring up the dialogue in the second movie. But,
that's fair.
Yeah.
I also something that I really like, which this is also, I think to a degree, this is also in Spider-Man 1, but excuse me, in the Sam Raimi first Spider-Man. But literally every problem in this movie is caused by Peter Parker, right? It's like, I mean, there's the fact that he is with his aunt and uncle as opposed to being with his family, which isn't directly his fault, but the way he goes, like once he's now approaching adulthood and is making decisions, the reason that he gets bitten by the spider in the first place and the reason like there's all these problems going on there is because he's deciding, I'm going to reject my family that I grew up with and I'm trying to reconnect with these people. He shows off at the school once he gets his powers, and that's what causes Uncle Ben to have to miss his shift and be late. And then all like that whole thing spirals out of control further and further until the point where Peter doesn't stop the criminal, and then that gets Ben shot. Whereas I mean, I guess this is also the case in Spider-Man 1, but like I appreciate how all of the problems in this movie are caused by Peter, because also he is the person who gives Dr. Connors the formula, right? The lizard doesn't exist without Peter, which is something that isn't explicitly addressed, but it's implicitly addressed in the second movie. Like the reason he's not helping Harry is because he already did this once. He already gave the formula to Dr. Connors, and it turned him into a monster lizard, and so he's not helping out his best friend. Supposedly, I mean, they don't do as good of a job of setting up the fact that they're friends, but he doesn't help his friend because he's already seen this problem. So I think that those are things that they do really well. I have another thing that they do that is a very interesting, specific like philosophy thing that I want to talk about, but I will open up the floor to you guys to raise your criticisms, and then we will. Then I will bring it back to something I want to talk about. But I'll let you guys bring out your criticism. You can do your judgment of this movie.
Here, one more thing before we do that. It's like, talking about that, everything's kind of Peter's fault. I do kind of like that it's done a little more, I don't know, not clandestinely, but it's very much not like, again, love the Raimi movies, but everything happens because of either comic book or because of movie logic. It's like, oh, right place, right time, got bit by a spider. Oh, the thing didn't work. Okay, I guess it killed Doc Ock's wife and turned him into Doc Ock because I don't know, it didn't work. I mean, yeah, they explained that, but it's kind of with that. Talking about that era, it's like, that's when Avengers came out. This era of superhero film is very much more grounded, and again, it's funny saying it's very much more grounded in reality with a giant lizard monster slapping people around, and, stuff like that. But yeah, kind of that. There's a bigger kernel of kind of like reality injected into these films, kind of because I would say because of the success of what would become the MCU. And it's not entirely because of it, but yeah. Jack, you go ahead. I've talked enough. That's
your rant.
No. That's.
Oh, we're taking turns. I see. Okay.
No, you're gonna tag team ranting on this movie.
He's coming in with a steel chair.
One thing I would mention positively, which I thought was interesting on the rewatch, before I get into just a few negatives, was the first scene in Amazing Spider-Man 1 is they're playing hide and seek, and you have Peter looking for his father. And that scene perfectly sets up the entire film where he is looking for his father figure.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have, he's looking at the briefcase with the information. He's looking there, and he's looking past Uncle Ben, who is his father figure, and he's trying to look at Dr. Connors as a father figure. The entire film is him trying to search for that father figure, and I think it's funny that that first scene basically sets that up in a way. So I thought that was a cool, I don't even know what you'd call that, but how they sort of mirror each other, how the first scene sets up that's basically what he's trying to do the entire film. I thought was kind of cool. So
I believe we call that a prologue. Like it's a prologue as like this is the thing that you like set up the rest of everything. Like everything.
Sure.
You set up a theme that echoes throughout the entire story. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Please keep the praise coming.
If I come up with anything else, I'll definitely let you know.
Right.
One thing I will say, if we're talking about both films, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So one thing that automatically makes the second film better than the first is that when Peter uses a search engine, he uses Google and not Bing.
Okay, I will grant you that. Yes, the obvious product placement is obvious and gets in the way.
Yes, so I'm definitely happy that he has learned his mistakes from the first film. He realizes Google is a better search engine. He's finally realized that come the second film, so that's pretty cool. I am bummed that we never see Rodrigo Guevara ever again. He just gets kicked out of the building because Peter takes his badge. I wanted this to be a supervillain origin story setup, and he ends up being a villain in the second film who's mad at Peter for ruining his life at this internship.
he becomes Venom.
Yes, he becomes Venom. I would believe that. It's like, you know what? I'm with you, Rodrigo. Peter's a jerk. Get him. So
I mean, yeah. Well, he is in the full being a jerk part of the movie, right? That's when he's being disregarding other people around him, which is causing all of his problems eventually.
Exactly.
If these movies knew how to set stuff up, that might have been good.
Well, someone is trying to. We better.
I won't.
We better raise
my
the
way
shields
and get going, Jack.
Well, speaking of setting stuff up, something I will say about these films is, in a lot of ways, these films sort of, especially with the second one, they have the same issue that the Snyderverse had, where they're rushing to push out a cinematic universe that ultimately falls flat on its face.
Hold that thought, because I have a I have a whole section where we're going to talk about
that. So we'll hold that
something
thought.
That is a big criticism that I have of this, of especially the second one, not as much the first one.
Okay.
So yes, we hold that thought, put a pin in it, and we'll come back to it.
All right. So before I have other thoughts, but before I pass the mic back to Joseph, one of possibly my least favorite thing about this is when it does the whole Peter's parents subplot. When you have in the second film, we find out, first off, just having his parents spy. I know that's in the comics, but first off, that just takes away from the fact that anyone can be Spider-Man, and it takes away the whole everyman thing.
Yep.
Specifically because the fact that only Peter could have become Spider-Man, because only Richard Parker's blood was in the spiders. That totally takes away from the everyman aspect of it, and that frustrated me, because that is a key thing with Spider-Man that they changed here.
I actually think that's part of the same problem. Right? It's part of the same problem that we were just talking about, is that it's trying to set up, it's part of a bigger universe and not just it being a Spider-Man movie.
Gotcha.
I think that's where that comes from. I think that's the reason why that's included, is because of that.
I see. Okay. Well, Joseph, I'll hand it back to you.
All right. Well, where do I begin? All right. Well, I actually don't have too much. I'm gonna throw in a little bit of more good since I really didn't do that the first time. But as it hot take of the evening, I didn't mind the first Spider-Man's costume.
Yeah.
It's like, costume wise, it's again, we're talking about, oh, he's being a jerk in this one, and he's like, most of the, and I do feel like it suffers a bit because most of the movie it takes him like be almost being forced to save someone to be like, start becoming the hero even after, he's kind of supposed to be doing it for Uncle Ben sort of thing. But
Mm.
yeah, I think the fact that that's the case, he kind of has that darker costume. It's a little darker in tone, I guess. It fit. It didn't look awful, but everything else is garbage. Okay, let's go. No.
Well, going with the costume, I mean, I think it's fine, and I get why they're doing it because I get the whole reason, at least my understanding, the whole thing they were trying to pull off is basically trying to do sort of a Batman Begins where it's like they're trying to do a darker, more grounded origin story. And so I get the reason for the darker costume, and that doesn't mean I have to like the costume.
Oh,
it's
no,
fine, and I understand it, but it might be my least favorite Spider-Man costume I've seen on screen in a film. Because I mean, it's fine, but compared to the other great costumes we've gotten, it's kind of meh.
I think
That's
it's
just
the
me.
eyes. I think the biggest thing people don't like is the eyes.
I like this better than Mechanical Spider-Man in the MCU. So I'm gonna disagree on this being the worst version. But that's also
I don't know about
at least there was a suit. Well, mostly a suit again, of course. And Joe, I'm sure there's another thing about there's probably a section about the improved CG or something, but yeah, we'll get into that. And I want to go. Like, I talked good about the dialogue in the first one. The second one, I don't know if production was rushed, if they fired the writers, if this was during some kind of mini writer strike. But mercy, Amazing Spider-Man 2. Wow, that was a armored car wreck, if you will. Just like in the opening.
Yeah.
First of all,
Yeah.
I break up with you, Peter. That's all I gotta say. But I
Yes.
see both of you grinning because that's all I have to say. I break up with you, Peter. It's
No.
Yeah.
Listen, okay. I made this comment off podcast as well. There is about 10 to 20% of Amazing Spider-Man 2 has it. There is 10 to 20% of Amazing Spider-Man 2 that could be in a good movie, and the rest of it is terrible. Right? So I don't disagree that there are a lot of terrible things. There are a few pieces. I mean, the clock tower scene, although I wish that Gwen didn't die, and the reasons that she dies is because of dumb comic book reasons. Like, literally the reason she dies in the comic book is because the writers didn't want Peter to get married. And so they're like, well, we have to kill Gwen off so he doesn't get married right now. And so, but that being said, the clock tower scene is beautiful. Like, I love the symbolism. I mean, it's a little bit heavy-handed, sure, but it is great. Very well done, where he's got his foot in the gear and you can see the clock hand trying to turn because he's trying to hold back time. He's trying to stop the inevitable turning of time, but he's not strong enough. Even Spider-Man isn't strong enough to stop time itself. And then there's the falling through the gears, and then the clock wheel is just spinning because time is unraveling in front of him. Great, excellent stuff. Things like that. You see things like that and you're like, wow, that's really cool. I wish this wasn't in a terrible movie.
Yeah, and well, even then, that's what happens in the comic, right? She had to fall.
Yes.
Did she fall off a bridge or she fall down a clock tower?
I can't remember if
I was about to say if that's
I think
the
it's off a
case.
bridge in the comics.
Oh, okay.
I
was gonna say if that's the case, then it doesn't come from Marc Webb's head. And you know what did come from Marc Webb's head? The tiny little web spinneret hand, and it's just like it's a little too on the nose. Like the clock tower symbolism you're talking about is like, okay, that's fine. That's good stuff. I'm not big dumb action man who doesn't care about depth in some like certain movies. But then it's just like, guys, Isn't it so sad? It's the little hand, guys. Guys, the little hand.
No, it's not little. It's Lil. L-I-L. Lil
The
hand.
little hand.
Little hand.
Mr.
Little
Webb,
hand.
please stop referring to the Webb as little hand. I can't. It just makes me so sad,
It's little
guys.
hand.
The theater's gonna be just they're gonna lose their socks over this thing.
These are little minds.
Lose their
Mr.
little
Webb.
minds over little hand. Mr. Webb,
We're-
please stop.
We're not making back the budget on this one, are we?
No, call me Lil Webb.
Little Webb.
Oh no, stop.
Call me Little
Making
Webb.
me cringe, Josh. No. Oh, that bit was better than half the comedy in that movie. That's another thing. But anyway, go on, Jack.
No, I was going to say one thing before we focus. Assuming we were focused more on two. One thing I wanted to say is the last line of the first Amazing Spider-Man film, in my opinion, still might be the dumbest last line of any superhero film.
Oh,
Him saying,
yes.
"Yeah, but those are the best kind." I mean, that's it's still.
Well,
Even watching it now, it's like it's so bad. It's so
Again,
bad.
The reason that it is there is because they don't want to be a concrete relationship, right? The reason that
Sure.
it is there is not because it's like they have to put something in there to make it a will they won't they thing. And so it's a writing failure that isn't a problem with like this movie. It's a problem with Hollywood in general. So-
Literally the worst part of the relationship from the first two Raimi movies is they brought it. They had to bring it back.
Yes, yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, no, it's why can't Spider-Man just be in a relationship is my biggest complaint about all of the Spider-Man movies. But
Well, I mean, even then, it's like there's a good reason for it, but they need to do it in either a different way or an interesting way, because it's just like this. And again, I get they're supposed to be high schoolers, but this is like this a high school level will they won't they garbage is just like it was kind of grating when it happened in the Raimi stuff, especially the second one. I didn't like Mary Jane in that one, but we already talked about that. But it's like, it was just kind of grating.
fair.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like Hollywood, like I said multiple times. It's almost like Hollywood doesn't know how to do good relationships. But
Now, Joe, are you saying that noted, I think like 43-year-old Marc Webb doesn't know how to write a high school romance?
I wouldn't come right out and say that. However, if you decide that you think that is a reasonable interpretation, I will not tell you that you're wrong. How about that?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Now,
This is my opinion.
There is one thing that I want to talk
I
about
can, though.
in the first movie that is something that has shaped my opinion of superhero movies. That is one of the reasons why I really enjoy the first one, and it's the core of this movie. And the core of this movie is the core of all superhero movies, is it talks about something that is intrinsic to superhero movies. I don't think that maybe more people are aware of this, and I'm just observing it as an outsider, or maybe nobody is aware of this. Like we all know that superhero movies are, there's the Greek mythology, and then there are knights in shining armor in Middle Ages, and we have like Westerns from the last century, and now superheroes are the modern understanding of that. It's the hero who goes out and he fights the bad guy, and it's all epic and cool, and you cheer for the hero, and the villains are interesting, but they're interesting in a way where you can still root for them to lose. And the superhero is in some way, the heroic character is in some way larger than life, and is fighting larger than life problems. But the difference between all of those things and superhero movies, and superhero comics and everything, is that the Greek heroes, in Greek mythology, the Greek heroes are explicitly historic things. Like no heroes are currently alive. The heroes were things that heroes were people that used to be alive. All of the knights and shining armor fighting against dragons, that's something that's historic. That's something that used to happen. The time when Western movies are very popular is obviously after the time when you actually had cowboys riding around in the West. But superhero movies are looking to the future. And they're looking to the future in something that is called transhumanism, an idea called transhumanism, which is the idea that eventually we're not going to be humans anymore. We're going to surpass being human. We're going to become better than human. We're going to be able to climb up walls and swing around on webs across the city, or we're going to be able to regenerate limbs. And that is something that is intrinsic to the superhero genre. The idea that we no longer have heroes from before that we celebrate. Instead, we're looking forward to the time when we will be better as a species, and the superheroes and supervillains are the first people who are better. And this movie explicitly addresses that idea, because that is explicitly what Dr. Connor is trying to do. He's actually not saying selfishly, I want to fix my own arm. It's, I want to make all of humanity better. Now, that includes selfishly fixing his own arm, but his goal is, I think that human beings are inferior, and I want them to be made better, and I think I have the way to make them better, and that is the core of his desire. And even though he gets distorted, he goes from being a scientist wanting to help people to the lizard who doesn't care if he's actually helping people. He just wants to test and make his idea work. But that idea of this like transhumanism, surpassing humanity, we're going to become better, is essential to what the first movie is about. And that idea, I disagree with the idea, but the reason why I enjoy this movie so much is because it confronts that idea better than any other superhero movie I've ever seen. So you guys can think about that. I don't know if you guys agree with my opinion, if you think that my understanding of superhero movies is wrong, or what you guys' thoughts there are. But I think that is one of the reasons, because the core of this movie addresses that question of, should we transcend humanity, or no, we need to embrace humanity. So now, I disagree with Dr. Cotters. I don't think that we're going to transcend humanity, but I appreciate the movie for actually confronting and asking that question.
See, I'm a little bummed because I was hoping on live recording we were going to get you confirming that you actually agree with Dr. Kurt Connors that you thought we should all be lizards.
Jack, I think Joe is a lizard Nazi.
I'm starting to get that idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I was a little excited. We could have gotten this on live recording, gotten this over to the police, maybe making a little dough off that.
Now, listen, I've already called them, actually, so, we're going to have to wrap this up. You're going away for a long, long time, Joe?
For saying I disagree with the lizard man?
No. That's not what history is going to think.
Oh, okay.
Now, that actually did. I was actually listening during that, and okay. I do agree that actually is presented a little in a superhero film. It is presented a little more clear than I would say many other mainstream ones. The problem is, though, it gets lost, I think, in all the other conventional superhero movie trappings that sort of became. It's not MCU-isms. We hadn't evolved to that yet, because again, Avengers, Joss Whedon got pulled onto that one. This is before everything tried to copy that. So, but still, there's very much the lizard's the big bad guy, and he just wants to do it because he's crazy now. The serum turned him crazy. He's a big crazy lizard thing. And was it in the comics? I think it's like after they either cure Dr. Connors or something, or like something like that. And it's like they put him on trial because, I mean, the dude killed and tried to kill a lot of people as a lizard. And it's just sort of like, I think the defense was, the serum did a Jekyll and Hyde thing, which is, I mean, a lot of people use a Jekyll and Hyde. It's like, it just, instead of taking out his, like, bringing out his inner demons, it just literally turned him into a monster. But that's like the excuse there, and I feel like that is what kind of drowns out any deeper reading. I mean, it's not a stretch, but I feel like to the on the surface level, it gets drowned out very easily, and unfortunately, I feel like that is to the detriment of the film itself. I'm not
Sure.
expecting like a gritty
Yeah.
drama for a Spider-Man film, but yeah, there's a lot of potential in what it is trying to present that maybe if they were a little more, again, not a little more clear, but I don't know, different gloves,
Mhm.
handled
No.
handled differently.
See, like I said, the reason I like it is because it is the one that asks this question. That it's the only one that actually explicitly raises the question,
Mm.
but that is intrinsic. The intrinsic problem to superhero movies. Or I don't even know if it's a problem. The intrinsic question behind superhero movies. And if there's another one that does it better and actually treats it with the full degree of seriousness that it needs to, then it is also an interesting superhero movie, then I will watch that instead, and I will put that above Amazing Spider-Man on my list of movies that talk about transhumanism and its intrinsic problems.
Oh, we might need to do some viewings then, because I can think of a couple of them, but
All right,
that'll get off track, and
we can
yeah.
talk about that, and maybe if they're good enough, we can do them on a new episode. So,
Mhm.
but I will get off of my philosophical soapbox. But
Police
I
are
go
still
on
on their
to.
way, Joe. I want you to know that.
All right. Well, in the meantime, before we get that done, before I get arrested for talking about lizard people, uh, we did when
Lizard people now, lizard
You-
people forever.
you started talking about the MCU isms, and I think another big problem with this movie, we talked about this before. We mentioned this already, is trying to become the next MCU, trying
The
to
first
become
Amazing Spider-Man, right?
yeah,
Well,
try,
both of them really. If
both
the
of
Yeah.
them.
MCU, yeah.
The first one isn't as bad. Like the first one
Right.
is a little bit more of its own thing, but the
Yep.
second one is polluted, and it is so diluted with trying to make fetch a thing. They are trying to make fetch a thing so hard in that movie. That's why we have like 5-10 minutes of Richard Parker the scientist at the beginning. That's the
Mhm.
reason why we have to set up Ravencroft. Is that the name of the institution? Raven something?
That sounds
is it the
right.
one where he's being held at the end? Like
Yeah,
the
I think it's Ravencroft is the
Cured
name of
guy?
the
Yeah.
institution.
Yeah.
Which is
Ooh.
Spider-Man's Arkham, right?
Oh, and I was about to say they brought that back and bringing back Let There Be Carnage. They brought that back in that film, didn't they? Like
Yes.
Cletus and his girlfriend get held at Ravencroft.
Mm.
Yes.
Were these supposed to be connected? Like before they
I don't-
packed Spider-Man up and sent him to Disney? Were they? Oh,
I
man.
wonder if
I'm
Venom
doing
was
research
originally.
now. Go ahead.
I think if Venom was originally supposed to be part of the Amazing Spider-Man universe, and then it got cut off into its own thing.
That wouldn't surprise me.
I am 80% sure that Venom was supposed to be part of this because it's supposed to be part. They were really trying to set up the Sinister Six to be a thing. Because the problem with all the other Spider-Man movies is there are too many villains, so let's put 6 of them in there,
Right.
Because that'll make it better. That's why they set up the Rhino at the end with that annoying teaser where you don't actually see him fight the Rhino, you just see him like about to fight the Rhino.
Literally all of his footage is used in the trailers. It's sad.
Yep.
You just have to wonder how much they paid Paul Giamatti to do that, because he's actually a good actor. I've seen him do very good things, but that was just like, wow, this is goofy.
We need to bring up the cast of the second one up later, like in depth, because oh my gosh, I don't understand how many condos or like beach houses got. How many beach houses did Marc Webb offer most of these incredibly respected, pretty highbrow actors? It's just
how many Sony Vaio laptops did he promise them?
Oh yeah, that brings up another thing. Oh god,
yeah, yep. Well, that's a problem with the product placement.
That's just Sony.
That's just Sony. That's just Sony being Sony. But yeah, there's so many problems with this movie that are because it is trying to be it's trying to be Spider-Verse before Spider-Verse could be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's trying to make Andrew Garfield the center of a Spider-Man universe that may or may not they might have kind of wanted to maybe connect it to the MCU, maybe, except that definitely didn't happen because MCU is like, excuse me, no, we saw the second one. Please no, we don't want anything to do with this. Go away. But I there's that problem, and there's also the problem of I talked about last time on one of the problems with Spider-Man 3 is that it is the start of the modern superhero movie, and it is the start of let's have the flashy whiz pop crack zippo wham pow action scenes that is it's just about, hey, we have the CGI to do this now, so let's just do this. Let's just fill up our runtime. This is actually in one was the one that stood out to most to me. It was like, why do we need to have the top of the tower falling down on top of Peter after he's already defeated the lizard? The reason that we have that is because we can do it, because we have the technology to be able to do that. So now we need to do that. And that's a problem with all of them, and it's a problem with the MCU, and it's a problem with the Justice League, the live action DC movies.
Right.
It's a problem with all of these modern movies, which is that we have been living so long using our imagination to pretend what these would be like, that now that we have the technology to make it real, we've forgotten to tell stories with it.
I think, what is it, to steal a Red Letter Media quote, it's like, you'd think we didn't like CG the way we're talking about it, but it's like, no, CG's fine, but CG's a tool. It's not the foundation. It's
And the reason for all of that is because we live in a society.
Oh, not the society.
We live in a society.
Why is Joker such a great movie? Minimal CGI. Boom. Got him. Why is Let There Be Carnage still a good film, but not the best? It's got a lot of CGI. CGI?
It's too much CGI in that movie.
I'm talking about Let There Be Carnage too much. I need to get off it. It's melting.
I mean, it is a cinematic masterpiece. So
apparently, that's the rumor I keep hearing.
Sending another squad car to your house just for that, Joe.
I feel like you only need one. But okay, thanks. I need more people to feed the lizard brain.
That's right.
Get him out of here.
No, you can't get rid of me. It's the problem. The thing that annoys me is, here's a quote this was about Star Wars. This is a quote from George Lucas, which is that you use tools to tell stories. You don't come up with stories to tell using the tools you have.
And George Lucas did that.
He didn't. He said it. Phrased it a little bit differently, but that was the gist of what he was saying. Is that
when did he say that?
Yes, that's a question. When did he say that? I think he said it before. I think he said it before the prequels came out.
Yeah.
But wait, we have these tools. Forget that.
Yeah.
No.
But yes, it is. I
didn't know we had these tools.
We live in a society, and we live in a day and age where we have too many tools, and so we're like, oh, I want to make this big sprawling cinematic universe where everyone loves it and everyone wants to live in the universe and everyone wants to talk about how they could be Spider-Man or they could be Falcon. Excuse me, they could be Vulture is what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Spider-Man villain. They could be, I don't know what Black Cat. Black Cat is a Spider-Man villain, right?
Yeah, and like she was teased in the second one.
She was teased in the second one. Right. Again, she was teased in the second one because they're trying to set up. They're trying to make Fetch a thing. They were trying so hard to make Fetch a thing. They were bending over backward to the point where they need to get a new spinal column reinserted because they were trying to make Fetch a thing in that movie, and it just wasn't going to happen because instead of trying to tell a good story, right? Instead of trying to tell the best story they could tell, and then deciding if there was more story to tell afterwards that has to take place in a expanding universe, they were just trying to make Fetch a thing.
Mm.
And I'm going to keep saying that phrase because I like using that phrase. But I think you guys understand the point.
Sure. No, it makes sense. Yeah, a lot of potential, and they just, as with most franchises recently, they're trying to push to be the next MCU, where the one thing they don't realize is that the one thing with the MCU is that took a lot of patience and a lot of time.
Yep.
But all the money. There's got to be some way to get all the money for about half the time, right?
Nope.
Not
Nope.
even not even half, an 18th of the time.
Yep. Literally overnight, they went to. Why are we not making gobs of money? Why are we not making more money than anyone has ever seen ever in their life because of a movie? Literally overnight.
I've got a great idea how to make up for it, sir. What? Product placements. Now let's name off the top five product placements in the Marc Webb duology. Jack, play the Price is Right theme here for a second.
We're gonna get sued.
Okay. But anyway, I gotta bring up just speaking of music, it's just Sony flaunting the fact that they own Jeopardy and having, what is it? Hey, Harry, don't tell Harry that he can hum the Jeopardy theme, because he did, and it was so weird. I don't know. I
don't
get
know.
it. I get it. It worked because he's like, he's being the bad guy now. But
Yeah.
it's just like they're only, like, he could have done any number of things, but they're just flaunting the fact that they own Jeopardy, and it's like, okay, yeah, we'll do that.
I did
And then
not
of
know that.
course, oh yeah, what is it? Jeopardy's parent company is Sony. Just to stick around for the credits, and
Interesting.
it'll pop up. At least I think
Interesting.
so.
I did not know that.
It might still be, or they might have. They were at least at the time of filming. I know that one. But anyway, you guys remember any other great product placements?
I mean, there's the prominent laptop in Spider-Man 2 where he's
Right.
looking at. I can't even remember what he's looking for. I just remember the laptop logo being brightened in your face.
And there was the airplane scene at the beginning where they're fighting and they're trying to grab the laptop, and Marc Webb shouts, "Quick, turn it to the side," so they see the Sony Vaio logo, and they turn it to the side when they're pulling on it.
Yeah. Obviously, there's Bing. We already talked about that, which is ridiculous. Nobody uses Bing. What else? What else do we got? What other product placements?
Real quick one. Yeah, it was the production one. Was it distribution CBS Productions, Sony Pictures? So,
Gotcha.
Funny. And I remember one pretty. I think it was during like the. Well, I can't remember it well, so it's not the best one, but I think it's during when he's in the second one when he's sick and he's getting like cold medicine or something, and he stops a robbery. I think they like show the brand that he gets for a split second. They like have it facing the camera. He's like NyQuil or something. I don't know. I don't know why I noticed that one, but it
spoke to you.
That was a weird scene, come to think of it. But we'll keep with the product placements before we go into that.
No, I do actually really like the what's it called? What's it called when you do the thing?
Montage?
Montage. Thank you. I couldn't remember the word. I do like the montage of him stopping a bunch of different types of criminals.
Now that's fine.
Not the product placement in there.
Right.
I don't even mind him being sick and him like having to fight someone while being sick. That's
no, me either. I thought that was fun. I really liked. I mean, I know they're trying to set him up in the first film, but I found him as Spider-Man to be very likable in the second one. I liked him a lot as Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the best tangent. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is the accurate good comic Spider-Man. It just broad statement. Yeah, he's good. People don't know what they're talking about if they say otherwise.
Yeah. Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man is the best part of these Spider-Man movies. There are other problems. There are other things that, we've said there's many things that we've talked about. But Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man is the best part of these movies, which is good because they are Spider-Man movies. Right?
Yes, you would hope. Yeah.
You would hope. Yeah. Actually, so this is something segue, we're kind of wrapping it up. Segue into the end.
Mm-hmm.
here is my controversial opinion, which I know I am in the minority on, but I will still say this. Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2, is the best movie that has Spider-Man in it. But The Amazing Spider-Man is my favorite and I think the best Spider-Man movie.
Oh, and I hear the sirens now. They're
Whoa,
that's
that's 4 squad cars now, Joe. Not even 3. You've upgraded to 4.
So Spider-Man 2 is the best movie that has Spider-Man in it as a character that is in that movie. But the things that I like most about that movie are more of the Peter Parker and Doc Ock and other things, but not necessarily the Spider-Man parts.
Gotcha.
But I think that Amazing Spider-Man
film.
Yes, it is the best well-rounded film, best overall film. However, if my goal is I want the most Spider-Man, I want the thing that is mostest Spider-Man, I would rather watch Amazing Spider-Man.
Interesting.
Because I think it is the best Spider-Man film, at least of these 5. Right? We're MCU doesn't exist yet. We're not talking about that. The MCU Spider-Man of these 5, The Amazing Spider-Man is the best Spider-Man movie. Not the best movie that has Spider-Man in it. There's there's an important distinction. But
okay, all right.
Okay.
So, what are your guys' your closing thoughts, and then we can do. I want to do a number rating, but also do I want to do a ranking of the 5 compared to each other. And then we'll compile our list and we'll add the MCU ones on as well once we get there.
I guess closing thoughts for me would be, I wish both Spider-Man films and superhero films in general, I wish they would try harder to make the characters, especially the villains, look more comic booky. Because I feel like they try a lot of times, like Lizard. I was not a huge fan of how he looked. He did not look very much like the one in the comics, and I wish they had tried harder with them, with Electro and all that. I feel like they with the MCU, they've been doing a little better with that, but I would rather them try harder to make them look as close to the comic book as possible and fail, rather than try and make them look quote unquote realistic and not like the comics.
And it's not even because I get what you're coming from. It's not even because it's like, what is it? Comic fanboy me like. No. I get what you mean. The way I see it is, it's like, listen, either get close to the design as you can, or like don't try and do your own ideas. It sounds bad. Don't try and do your own ideas, because your own ideas apparently give us the new Green Goblin, Jamie Foxx's Electro, the Lizard, which looks like a pug with a skin problem, and it's like what we get now.
Wow.
And again, yeah.
Well, really let us hear it.
Yeah. What we're getting now in terms of, like, again, we've all seen the new, and we're looking, preview for the MCU ones, I guess, but we all see the new designs for we've seen the designs for the Vulture. Michael Keaton's Vulture, very good, not comic accurate, however, very good, very intimidating, also kind of captures the spirit of the character. You see, what is it, Jamie Foxx as Electro in the new movie, he looks great. He's wearing some Timbs, but I mean, he looks great. It captures kind of like that comic book feel without the green spandex.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think this goes to, and we'll go back to that little excuse me. Let me try that again. I'll take that from the top.
We're going mad.
This little philosophy thing is, they are trying in these movies to make it so that this larger than life in comic books, in the actual comic books, it's fully acknowledged. It's living more into the larger than life, meta reality, Greek hero kind of thing. But this isn't something that's actually realistic. This isn't something that's attainable. This is something that's just cool and impressive and maybe aspirational, but not something that's realistic. Whereas in these modern movies, they are trying so hard to make you believe that you could actually really be one of these superheroes. They want you to believe that you could actually get bitten by a weird genetically manipulated spider and get weird spider powers. They want you to believe that you could be dumped in a cave with a box of scraps and become Iron Man. Sorry, I had to do it. Yeah, it has to be done.
Nope.
But they are trying so hard to make you believe that you can actually be one of these superheroes, that they're not beyond reality, that they are realistic. And that is I mean, so it's a question of what you want. Do you want to be told that this is something that you really could do, or do you want to live, or do you want to just see the meta reality and enjoy it knowing that it's not real?
I think want both, so I'll watch Into the Spider-Verse.
Okay, well, fair enough. That works. That is fair.
Yeah, just the fact that that film exists is, I'm not trying to counter you or anything, but the fact that that film exists shows that they could have done it with this one and they didn't. And I know big boundaries between animation and live action. There's that, but you know, if you want my opinion, my hot take out of the many hot takes I've had, not police worthy, but you know, it's like comic book movies deserve to be animated as preferred to live action.
That's fair.
I could see that.
If what you want is you want the larger than life, unreal reality, yeah, they need to be animated.
Larger than life worlds with attainable like philosophical ideas and like messages. Like again, anybody can step up. It's like that's what happens in Spider-Verse. I mean, they do it in Raimi ones. They do it there. But you know, again, Spider-Verse, like anyone can step up, anyone can be a hero, anyone can be Spider-Man, that sort of thing. And then we've also got, you know, a kingpin the size of a house, sort of thing. It's like the perfect blend, it really is.
The perfect blend.
Yeah,
perfect.
There you go.
All right. Well, let's wrap up with some numerical scores out of 10. And I know that I'm going to have scores that don't match anyone else's, so I will close so you can have a good taste at the end.
All right, who's going first?
Well, Jack, you spoke first, so go ahead.
I guess I'm going first. Okay.
Sure.
So are we doing our rankings just for these two films, or are we doing like total of the 5 we've seen?
Do your out of 10 rankings for these two, and then your total out of 5, how you list all of them.
I see. Okay. So my total ranking out of 10 for these two. With the first one, that's teetering between a 7 and a 6 for me, is what I would say. And I would give the sequel, I'd probably give that a 6. So, because I think about them a lot. I think about them both very similarly, where it's like, I mean, I think they're both fun. I think they're both good. And that's pretty much it concerning that. Are we going to each go do our amazing rankings first and then go back and do our totals, or do we just do both now?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's do your ranking and your total.
Okay. So yeah, that's probably what I would say for those two films. And so my total rankings would be, I would ranking the 5 that we have covered on the podcast, I would put 2 first, then Spider-Man 1, Raimi Spider-Man 1, then Amazing Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3.
All right.
Very good, very good. All right. Now, for potential for the first Amazing Spider-Man, with potential factored in, it's a solid 5 fingers grown back on Kurt Connor's right arm or left arm. I can't remember either way. But, you know, just kind of as a film itself, I don't know, closer to a 4. Again, I guess it's non-rose tinted glasses kind of going there. It's just like I don't remember very much about that first one. I watched it today, ironically enough, and it's just, with it being fresh in my mind, it's just it tries some new things, and again, kudos to that. I guess that's where that 5 comes from, but it's just not as good. And for 2, I'm gonna give it a what is it? I was gonna say 3. Closer to it. I was gonna say 3, so I can say 3. Was it dropped love interest? Which again, with the new MCU film, we'll get the new Mary Jane falling down just like Gwen and the other Mary Jane. But yeah, it's closer to it too.
So
it's
you
just
like
so much wrong.
It's worse than Eternals.
I was about to say you like it Eternals more? Interesting. Okay.
Yes,
All right.
I'm gonna
Wow.
say it. I'm
Wow.
gonna say it.
Wow.
Wow.
As bad as Eternals was, at least they had one line they tried to follow. They didn't do it the best, but then there's just like this thing's just a jumbled spider web on LSD, if you will. Yes, it's just not. There's no discernible direction. I get scared looking at it. Mom, pick me up. I'm scared.
Mom, come get me. I'm scared.
Yeah. And in terms of the 5 movie ratings, 21132.
21132.
Yeah. Okay. Well, amazing. Sorry. Oh, I was gonna actually explain my crazy number there. Spider-Man 2, Raimi 1, Raimi Spider-Man 1, Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man 3, and then Amazing Spider-Man 2.
So I am going to do, like I said, Spider-Man 2 is the best movie that has Spider-Man in it. And I think we gave it 10s, right?
Yes.
So Amazing Spider-Man for me is a 9. All right? And I understand that I have a controversial opinion. I understand that I'm the only person here that recognizes Venom 2 for the cinematic masterpiece that it is, and I'm the only one here.
The sirens, that's fine.
And I'm the only one here who will give Amazing Spider-Man a 9, but I will give it a 9.
Okay. All right. I'll allow it.
Amazing Spider-Man 2
Have a nice day.
is a 5. It is a movie. It exists. They could have done so much more with it. It also could have been so much worse. At least just not Eternals.
Hashtag at least it's not Eternals.
At least it's not Eternals.
I just don't know, man. Just keep going for a throw.
So 2-1-1-2-3. So Sam Raimi 2, Amazing Spider-Man 1, Sam Raimi 1, Amazing Spider-Man 2, and of course Spider-Man 3 is rounding out the bottom.
Of course.
So that is of course, obviously. So I think that is enough talking about Amazing Spider-Man. But fortunately, Spider-Man doesn't get to exist on his own anymore. Spider-Man becomes part of something bigger, part of something more than all of us, which is the giant behemoth juggernaut that is the MCU. And that is what we will be talking about next week.
Welcome to the family.
Oh boy. No.
I'll agree to never do that again. If you change your rating to no.